Well, hello there. I am flying solo today because someone went to bed like a quitter because she has to be up at 5:30. So, anyways, I'm one Red Bull in and I want to get this out of my system. So here I am. I've been thinking a lot lately about lost media, but some very specific types of lost media. I'm sure most of you are familiar with lost media, but if you're not, it's essentially something that was either made, produced, aired, even just the concept of something, anything tied to a piece of media that was either in production or fully produced that we no longer have access to. Like you saw something on TV once and then it never ran again, never had a VHS or DVD release or anything, never went on streaming. And then you're like, what the hell happened to this? You know? Or something that could have been made and was in the process of being made, but ultimately got canned. Anything that was produced for that, even though there wasn't a finished product, is technically lost media. And what I have today, it's a good spectrum of lost media. You know, there's a couple different types. But given that everything that is near and dear to my heart is as old as my grandparents or my parents' age, there's bound to be some lost media there, unfortunately. And I wanted to make this video and do all the research that I did in order to get more eyes on this. And I'm also going to be making some Reddit posts, some Lost Wiki posts about it, because I would not be thinking about these things if I did not want to see them so badly that it hurts. Like, I have 4 pieces of lost media to talk to you about today, and all of them are about, like, some of my favorite things on this planet. I did the best that I could to gather all of the evidence that I have. Anything that I could find relating to this, any information, anything can be a lead. Production company people worked on it, like, anything. You don't know until you reach out to people, and some of these there's a decent amount on, others not so much, but I'm going to start with the simplest one to talk about first because there's not much for this, and I don't think much was made for it, but it piqued my interest. It was something I read about a while ago. I am a huge fan of the band Brownsville Station. If you don't know them, yes you do. You know Smoking in the Boys' Room. Don't lie to me. You know Smoking in the Boys' Room. And you should know Martian Buggy. Bare minimum. They're one of my favorite bands on the planet. They're phenomenal, spectacular. They deserve way better. But I found an image years ago. It was from a fan club newsletter. And I had a picture of them in, like, you know, army getup. I think Cub is saluting, and it talked about a movie that they wanted to produce called Brownsville Station Joins the Army. And what I could find on this is that the band wrote a screenplay, and around 1974 they were shopping it around looking to find people that were willing to make it. And that's kind of where it ends. So the only thing that's confirmed are those pictures. There's a couple pictures, I'm going to pop them up on the screen, that where they're like, I don't think they actually filmed it, but I think that was some sort of proof of concept at least. And obviously the script was written, and it was written by the band members. That's what I want to find. If any of the members of the band still have a copy of that script, oh my god, that would be so fucking amazing. Like, they're one of the most chaotic bands out there. Can you imagine how fucking funny that would be? I need to see this. We need to start contacting the members of Brownsville Station. Like, talk to Jeannie Coda, you know? Like, I want to make that happen so bad. That's really all I had on it. is that it was around 1974. They got as far as a screenplay, and there's at least 2 photos that have some relation to what they wanted to make. The next one is something that very recently came onto my radar. I have been absolutely obsessing over Flo and Eddie and just hyper-fixated on their books. And oh my fucking god, in another life I would have been best friends with these assholes. They knew everybody. Everybody. Okay? So, there's a ton of... This came from Howard's book, by the way. I haven't seen it mentioned in Mark's book yet. But, in Howard's book, he mentions a lot of appearances on television, but one really stood out to me because it was a Flo and Eddie television pilot. It was called Happy Together, and I learned this today, this afternoon, that apparently it was produced and co-written by Lorenzo Music, aka Garfield, aka Carlton the Doorman from Rhoda. I can't process this information, this is too much. So he produced and co-wrote it with a guy named Steve Pritzker. Pritzker. My handwriting is dog shit. It was produced for CBS on October 6th of 1977. And I actually found a video on YouTube of just the intro. And you can see on the slate, which is that little clapboard thing, you can see on the slate that date is there. Which I pulled the date from Howard's book. So that basically is just the intro, it's them singing Happy Together. And then you get like one frame of what might be a title card or like the first scene. I think it's a title card, I don't know. But it irritates me to think that there's part of this footage out there and then the rest is like in the abyss. But because we have that, I think there's a okay-ish shot of it being found. Ideally, I'd like to reach out to whoever posted that, but somehow it got marked under YouTube Kids, so there's no comment section on there. So that might be a good place to start, is with that uploader. They signed with Universal Studios for the TV deal, as per Howard's book. Yeah, that was pretty much all that I had on it. Obviously they did the music for it because they're literal musicians. So that's it for Flo and Eddie. I really would love to see it. I think there's some shot. I don't actually know if it was broadcast, but I do know that it was produced and somehow some part of it made its way onto the internet, which leads me to believe that the rest of it is out there somewhere. There's hope. The next one that I want to talk about is, ironically, I ended up being a good source for most of the information that I found on this. If you know anything about me, you'll know that I had a massive Bay City Rollers phase, which transitioned into a phase for Rabbit, the band Rabbit, with Duncan Fora, who was in the Bay City Rollers at the end of their, like, peak. One of my favorite human beings on the planet. So underrated. The band Rabbit is absolutely phenomenal. You should check them out. They've been called the South African Beatles because they quite literally had that effect on fans. Where I'll show in a minute, but they really did have that mania surrounding them. And they deserve it. They're very talented. But Duncan Fora's brother, Bill Fora, also known as William Fora, he was a producer. And he was a director. I believe he directed a series called The Dingleys, which Duncan and his band did the theme song for. Dingley's Bookshop. It's a Rabbit song. It was probably one of their bigger hits. aside from Charlie, of course, but I knew that it was for a show that his brother worked on. Many moons ago, I tried to search for it and I couldn't find it. I'm like, what the hell? Is this like lost media or whatever? And I think it is. The problem here is that this is a much different country than the United States. So I'm not searching on South African websites. I don't quite know how to find them, but I dug as far as I could find, and most of the articles just kept regurgitating the same information and the same information. There's details on when it aired, there's details on who starred in it, and unfortunately, because this was South Africa in the 1970s, apartheid was still a thing. Unfortunately, there were reports that the one black cast member on the show ended up getting booted because she dared to have lunch with the rest of the white cast, which is absolutely horrible. And I hate that something that I love has ties to that, but from what I've heard, Duncan himself is an absolute sweetheart. He lives in the United States. From what I can tell, he's always been against that. Ultimately, I just want to find the episode that the band appeared on. Funny enough, the show had bad reviews. Not just bad, terrible. It was, quote, known for its amateurish acting. And apparently the scripts weren't great either. It was known as South Africa's first TV soap opera, and it aired on SABC, or South African Broadcasting Corporation. Its first episode aired January 3rd of 1977. I pulled this information from my beautiful scrapbook. I somehow, through some connection of a friend that is as into the Bay City Rollers as I am, somebody knew somebody that had a scrapbook that was selling it, and I was like, I need this right now. And it is full of newspaper clippings and just various things relating to Rabbit. It is priceless. Do you know how little information there is on this band? If you need to know anything about this band, contact me, because it is probably in this book. There is even on the first page a literal hotel card from Duncan. I don't know how this person got a hold of it. And literally the hotel names of where everyone was staying and what room and what extension. Whoever made this had connections. I don't have the full backstory, but the person that I got it from did know Duncan. And they included a couple of pictures that they took of him somewhat recently. So it is legit. But I found a few articles that mentioned the Dingleys, and essentially the information that I could find was that the specific air date. Episode number 3, it was called Rock Fever, and that was the episode where the band shows up. And of course people were like, oh, it's nepotism because Bill's related to Duncan, but yeah, pretty much. What are you gonna do about it? It's literally the most popular band in the country at the time. Of fucking course they're gonna be on there. So that's really what I'm looking for. But I can't find any clips or anything of this band. The only thing that I have are newspaper articles, which I will put pictures up. Half a second of a clip from some documentary somewhere that was a compilation of Rabbit clips where someone's talking over it. Sorry, I'm definitely getting sick. Another thing of note was that apparently one of the stars of the show, his name was Eckhard Rabe. Apparently he had some musical talent. He wanted to be involved in music, or his character did. And Duncan Fora ended up writing two songs for him. One was called Freedom. The other one was called Time So Far Behind. And he also appeared on the actual recordings. He sang backup vocals, and I think he played an instrument or two. And, yeah, that's also lost media. I can't find dog shit on this. So, there's lost media within lost media. So, great fucking job. I didn't find shit. All I found was more lost things. And that's all I have on Dinglies. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about is the core of my hyperfixation lately. I adore this man with my entire heart and soul. Everything he's did is so fucking good. Paul Williams. Apparently, in June of 1979, NBC aired a pilot called The Paul Williams Show, and it was supposed to center around him. If you know anything about television pilots, you know that most of them don't get picked up. It was aired in a four episode block of 4 separate pilots. It was a 2-hour block, and unsurprisingly, it didn't get picked up. But it was aired. We know that obviously Paul Williams did the theme song for it. It was called You Gotta Believe, which I can't find that either. Like, that's also lost media connected to this. Luckily, this is the one that I probably have the most information on. There's an IMDb page about it, which is already leagues ahead of like half of the stuff that I've talked about today. We know who the cast was, we know who was in production, who directed it. It aired on June 27th, 1979 on NBC. The script is actually partially found. A friend of mine who's also friends with Paul, he uploaded some of it to his Tumblr, and I'll post screenshots here. Wonderful guy. He's been very active in the search too. We have some of the script, we also have some pictures. We have one still, and then one photo from behind the scenes. And I believe we also have a press release. So there's at least some leads. Paul Williams has been contacted about this, and I actually found a Lost Media wiki that mentioned that whoever had posted on there had asked Paul, and also NBC. And NBC had apparently just destroyed whatever copy they had of it, which, why would you do that? And Paul, at one point, had a tape of it, and at some point, he lost it. Now, I was told, I believe, if I recall correctly, I was told that he had sent it out to be digitized or whatever, and then it was never seen again. Either he got scammed or it got lost in the mail. Something happened to this tape where he doesn't have it anymore. And the bottom line is that he doesn't have the tape anymore. Also, my friend Miguel actually does know of somebody who did see it air and partially remembers it. I don't know how far that's going to get us, but that's something. And there are a lot of names that we can contact here. The production company was called First Artists, so anyone connected to this would be a good place to start, you know. Obviously the higher up, the better chances, but the top 2 leads, NBC and Paul Williams, have been struck out at this point. Apparently it aired twice. I don't know when the second airing was, but we know when the premiere was. And that's all I have for now on that one. But I'm really hoping that some of this can be found. In my honest opinion, the Brownsville Station one is the least likely to be found because it is probably something that maybe 1 or 2 members of the band maybe could have thought to save and is probably like in a personal collection or maybe in somebody's attic somewhere. Realistically, I don't think we'll find that, but I wanted to talk about it because if nobody talks about it, no one's going to find it because no one's going to know to look for it. I think the Flo and Eddie show and the Paul Williams show, we probably have the best chance of finding. especially because we know a copy existed at some point of the Paul Williams show, and that it aired twice. That's decent odds. Not phenomenal, but it's something. And with Flo and Eddie, that little bit that I was able to find did give me some hope. So, it's not all terrible. Like I said, I will be making posts. I've compiled all the information that I have. I've got notes, I've got pictures, I've got as many receipts as I could find. And if you can find anything more, please, please, please let me know. Get this word out, because if you're like me, your heart breaks to see that there's lost media out there that people can't find. And really, anything that was once lost that can be found is fucking phenomenal. And because these are all things I've hyperfixated on at some point or another, that would be so fucking amazing to find it. Like, ooh. Especially that Dingley's episode, like, I don't think you have any idea how few footage there is of Rabbit in their prime that is available on the internet. It's almost nothing. You'll have to bear with me with the cough drop in my mouth, because my throat's not doing too good right now. I just came off of 2 weeks of working consecutively, most days multiple jobs. So this is my first, like, real actual day off, and my body is like, whoa, you shouldn't have done that. So, I'm living with the consequences of my own actions. Anyway, that's about all I have for today. Like I said, get the word out. If you know anyone that's interested in any of these things that I've just mentioned, bring it up to them. See if they know anything about it. And who knows, they might end up caring, and they might end up digging around to find stuff too. Ultimately, I'd also like to reach out to some people who are more heavily involved in lost media, especially some lost media YouTubers that I watch a lot. People that cover it, just to get more eyes out there and get more experts looking at it, because that's how this stuff gets found. Anyway, that's about all for today, so see you next week!